Taravangian was meant to pick up Odium, and Dalinar was not only meant to pick up Honor, but to let it go. And this was a plan started from the beginning by Cultivation. Cultivation wanted to create Retribution, and I'm going to explain to you just how that is. Koravellium Avast was a dragon before she ever became a shard, and she's unique in this. Though I think there might be more recent words of Brandon that one of the other shards may have also been a dragon, but I think that's something that has changed and it's not relevant to this video, but maybe it'll come up in another one. Either way, the vessel of cultivation was a dragon. Dragons have way more powers than we even know about. We know that people worship them and that dragons give them strength through their worship. We know that dragons have an extremely long life cycle, a life cycle that is tens of thousands of years at the least. So she was already prepared mentally to take up a shard in a way that none of the others were. There's many things we don't know about dragons, but we do know that dragons are so invested that they can't even die properly. Once they die, their spirits have to fade away gradually over thousands of years. We've seen Starling go to this plane. In fact, the only other person that we know that can make it to where the dragons slowly fade away is Hoyd. And Starling thought that was very strange to see Master Hoyd there. All of this is to say that cultivation has a lot of practice in many different things that all the other shards had to learn on the fly. She didn't have a learning curve like everyone else did. In fact, who knows how much the extra investiture really affected her? I mean, obviously, she's the shard and she's in all three realms at once. And from what I understand, dragons are only on the one plane while they're alive. But it still gives her the ability to plan ahead in a way no one else would even think of. Now, why do I think cultivation created retribution on purpose? Well, let's start with what happened at the beginning of the shattering. After a certain amount of time, cultivation and honor met up on Roshar. I can't exactly remember who got to Roshar first, but it doesn't matter. They both ended up there, which was breaking an oath that they made with the other shards. And so they sat there and they decided to, build a life, to rule this planet and to spend their eternal lives together. And then what happens? Odium shows up on a planet close to theirs. And what does cultivation say to honor? Leave him alone. Obviously, Tanavast, Honor, and Rayse, Odium, had a lot of baggage before they picked up their shards. And so it made it really hard for Honor to ignore that Odium was so close. He had to do something about it. It was just something that he wouldn't leave his mind. And so what did he do? He ignored the woman he loved and he betrayed her and he went to go interfere with this planet that Odium was already doing stuff on. And so he really broke that pact twice. The shards were not supposed to interact with each other. It was a word that they all gave because they knew the danger of it. Now, Odium had already broken this multiple times and killed other shards before this happened, before Honor and him started conflicting. And Honor still decided to go figure out what he was doing and try to stop him. Even though the woman that he loved begged him to not mess with it, to leave it alone, that together they could fight him off no matter what he tried to do, that it wouldn't be their problem. But Honor wouldn't do it. And I'm sure it broke Cultivation's heart. Because from what we see, he doesn't really talk to Cultivation much in that time. And in that time, we find out that Honor was a terrible shard. Tanavast had no idea what he was doing. And so he was befuddling himself all over the place. And what does he do fighting Odium on Braze? He helps almost destroy the planet, meaning that Honor and Odium have to flee, and Honor, not wanting to give up the humans because he cared about the mortal lives and couldn't live with himself to see them completely destroyed, decided to go back to Roshar with them, which invites Odium to come with him, since some of them were bonded to Odium and some of them to Honor. And so we have Odium, Honor, and Cultivation on the same planet. And all Honor wants to do is blow Odium up, but he can't. And they keep just going back and forth, back and forth. And Odium steals the native inhabitants away from Honor right under his nose. Cultivation and Honor were working with the native inhabitants for so long, And then Odium shows up and just takes that away from them. So of course Cultivation is going to be even more pissed. I mean, we know Honor is, but unlike Honor, she's not going to just blame it on Odium. In fact, it's not 100% Odium's fault at that point. It's more Honor's fault than anyone else's because he couldn't leave it alone. And Cultivation has to deal with it now. And so Honor and Odium start fighting again. And they're about to destroy the planet, and Honor has to stop. So who comes up with an idea to stop them from destroying the planet? Cultivation does. And so Cultivation, Honor, and Odium bind themselves to this location and inhibit their powers. They stop themselves from being able to spread their powers uncontrolled. They put rules on it and they bind themselves there. But why would Cultivation do that? Why would Cultivation want to bind herself to a planet that Honor betrayed her on and brought Odium, a diabolical shard that just wants to destroy? It doesn't make sense that she didn't just leave. But you know what the binding did? It put Honor and Odium in a situation to weaken their bonds with their shard. Now, binding them there instantly, instantly affected Odium because the shard Odium does not want to be bound. And Rayse, its vessel, is now making it stay in one location and not allowing it to just wreak the havoc that it wants. Because I know Odium is supposed to be emotion and all these different things, but it really sounds a lot more just like destruction. Like it wants pure emotion and it loves violent emotion. And that's all it wants. And Rayse is telling it no. So Odium starts trying to create a new vessel. Now we don't know where the Unmade came from, but the Unmade were made, and now Odium really wants one of them to become its new vessel. So Rayse is sitting there going like, "Oh my god, I have to do something." On the other hand, Honor meets up with that Unmade and makes a deal with that Unmade, and it looks like that Unmade wants a more peaceful world. So Honor sits there and thinks, "Well, hey, I can do something about that." But instead of working with that Unmade, he goes and he talks to Rayse, and him and Rayse start working out a deal in order to seal that Unmade. And do you know who knew how to seal the Unmade? Cultivation. Cultivation knew how to seal that Unmade and then gave that information to Honor, which led Honor to seal that Unmade. And what did that do? It made Honor break his word to the Unmade. What did that do? That made Tanavast break his word to that Unmade, and the power of Honor would have none of it. He's already broken his word so many times, and it's every single time it does, Honor is just like, "What are you doing? The one thing I need you to do is when you say something, you do it. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what it is, you do it." And what does Tanavast do? He makes a deal with both an Unmade and Odium. It has to break one of them. Well, he breaks one, and the shard kicks him out, allowing him to be killed. I mean, it seems like Cultivation probably would have known that was going to happen. It seems like Cultivation set up the man she loved to die so that Honor would be free to eventually be controlled by someone else. She also probably knew how Honor was going to act, that Honor would feel betrayed and wouldn't want anyone else. So, after this, we need to jump forward to a more modern time in the Cosmere. Now, not all the way to where we are right now, it's a little bit before, and we need to talk about the people she starts setting up to take over the powers of Honor and Odium. Now, there is a third person, Lift, who isn't really relevant to this situation right here. I think Lift has an important part. I mean, she obviously has an important part to play in the future, and I do think she has to do with some very big plans for Cultivation. But I don't think that those are supposed to come into fruition yet. I think that's another one of Cultivation's plans that is just decades out. And so I know we're going to probably get all of that in the next book series, in which I think that all of what I'm saying is going to be vindicated. I think Cultivation being more involved is going to be a big part of the Cosmere in the future, or at least Cultivation taking down Retribution and maybe setting someone else up. No, I don't think it's Lift, but setting someone else up, taking the powers herself, or maybe getting the powers to just be off on their own. Who knows? The Cultivation has plans for that, but I'm just talking about how she made Retribution. So let's get down to it. Taravangian's first. Taravangian was created to take up Odium. We know that. There's no questioning that. He was meant to take up Odium. Cultivation set that up, and that she thought that she can control him afterwards. Or, at least, she wants us to believe that was her plan. All right? Because she split Taravangian into two different people. She split him into an emotional person and to a no nonsense, rational person. Someone so rational that human life is just a commodity to them. Somebody who, when they're so emotional, cares so deeply for everything. Now, the emotional side makes complete sense for Odium because Odium is emotion and it's pure emotion and it sets him up to be perfectly bonded with Odium. But his rational side doesn't make any sense with Odium. Odium's not rational. Odium is the opposite of rational. But you know what it does? It gets him to create plans. It gets him to set up situations that work out for him. It gets him to make bargains and deals with people, but he doesn't really ever actually break them. He constantly sets them up and follows through because he knows that by being a rational human being, being super rational, that it's better to follow through and manipulate people into doing what you want instead of just breaking your oaths and betraying them. Now, that is the side that appeals to honor. That's the side in the end that he's able to use to get honor. But we also have Dalinar. Now, Dalinar was a little bit of a strange thing. We know what happens when Dalinar went there, and it almost seemed like Cultivation was a little shocked that Dalinar showed up. And she did multiple things to him. But one of the most important things she did to him is that she made him get violently ill every single time the thrill took over him. And then she slowly started taking that away. And we see that in the book. Every time he gets into it, every time the thrill's coming up, he sits there and he gets like he's going with it. He's getting his warlord way. He gets violently ill. I mean, Cultivation is basically using aversion therapy on Dalinar at that point. She is forcing him to get ill. She's forcing him to have withdrawals from using the thrill, almost like she's just setting him up to be able to release power. All right, the thrill is power. It's momentum. It's what really gave Dalinar his battle edge. I mean, yes, he had his mind. He was a great warlord and a great like war planner and all a general and all this stuff. But his momentum, everything was momentum to that man, and that was so tied to the thrill. And she got him to give up his greatest addiction. We also have certain instances where Dalinar is inside visions that aren't created by honor. At times, he's having visions of Noadon and interacting with him when he shouldn't be able to. Those visions shouldn't exist. Now, we know that shards create these visions for Dalinar at this point, that honor created all these visions. We know that Odium can enter these visions. But you know who could set up a vision for him in which that he could still interact with somebody inside of it at that point and hide it from another shard? Cultivation could. And who gave Dalinar the thought to give up honor? Who was the one that fed it to him? It was Noadon. Everything is being set up by Cultivation. She needed Dalinar ready to give up honor because she needed Taravangian to grab it. And what does Taravangian do? He does. He picks it up and he becomes Retribution. Now, why would Cultivation want him to become Retribution? It gets her off the planet. She got her revenge on Tanavast. She got her revenge on Rayse, and now she can leave the planet. Now, I do think there will be more for her in the future, and I'm sure that like she's probably super conniving. I mean, she saw her lover betray her. She saw a man take advantage of his shard's power to kill other shards. She is wary. She is on guard, and she has plans. And Retribution was one of those plans. Lift is another one of those plans, and I can't wait to see what other schemes Cultivation has up in the future Stormlight books.